What's up, guys? Welcome back to In the Shop TV. My name is Mike. Today we're finally getting started on the rear suspension of our 1955 Chevy truck. Stick around. All right, guys, it's been a long time coming. We finally got our Mustang 2 front suspension all finished, all buttoned up and looking good. You know, I've been putting this off for a while because I've had other projects going on, but to tell you the truth, I've got stuff all over the shop that's meant for this rear end. There's boxes right here in front of me that are full of rear end parts. My rear end housing assembly is sitting over here on top of my welding table, taking up space. It's in my way. It's just time, guys. I want this rear end started yesterday. So I decided to go with the 4-link kit from Full Tilt. I'll put a link in the description to their product. We're going with the parallel 4-link, and I think it's gonna be perfect for our full coilover suspension. I might have done a different type if we had, if this truck was bagged or riding on air suspension, but I think the parallel 4-link would be just right for this project. So the first thing that has to happen, and the thing that I'm looking forward to the least, is right here, those old spring perches, yeah, they're riveted on, they gotta come off, and I'm pretty sure we're gonna have to C-notch this frame because we're gonna be sitting kind of low, and I don't think that's gonna work. So we'll get a C-notch kit for that. I think we're gonna wait before we do that part of it just to see how everything looks. And we'll see how the truck is sitting once we get everything welded up in terms of the 4-link. But for right now, we're gonna get these spring perches off of here. This way we can get the brackets installed for our link bars. All right, guys, here's the old leaf spring perch. If you guys remember in other videos, I kind of preach about using those roto cuts. They're kind of like a hole saw that pop these frame rivets out. Well, I broke the one that I need. That's the exact size for this. I ordered a replacement, but it's not here yet. So I'm kind of using the old method of just kind of scoring these rivets with a grinder, and I'll hit it with the air chisel and knock them off and then punch them through. A little bit more of a pain in the ass to do it that way, but it works nonetheless. So once I get these off, these are the new brackets that kind of mount here. You put the 2 holes into these 2 existing holes, put 2 bolts there rather, and you got to drill out these holes here on both sides, and then you got to drill a hole in the center of the frame where this hole is right there. All right, that side's off. Sorry I couldn't take you with me under the frame, but I got about 12 inches there and I just couldn't fit myself and the tools and the camera and my big old noggin, so you're just gonna have to trust me. All right, so we got the second side off. I wasn't sure if I was gonna bolt the new brackets on as the instructions say, or if I was gonna weld them on, but after some investigation, there is some rust here. So if I look around the back, it's really kind of starting to flake off and scale on the inside. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray that up real good with some rust converter on the inside, and then I think I'm going to wire wheel this all down, bolt up my new brackets, get them drilled, and then I am definitely going to go ahead and weld on the brackets once everything's all set, because here to the outside of this area I still have really nice, good, clean, strong metal. So I mean, that just makes sense, right? I mean, when we rely on this thin stuff here for our bolt holes to hold our suspension on, I don't think so. All right, guys, so upon taking these brackets off and getting the rivets out from the inside, this center support or cross member here has braces that go down and grab the bottom of the frame and the top of the frame, and it just kind of holds this C-channel together and makes it stout. When I was popping those rivets out, I noticed it's pretty rotten in there. So I think, same thing on the other side. But I think what's gonna happen is I'm gonna wind up taking these rivets out on top and just getting rid of this entire cross member and making my own, because my transmission is also, my drive shaft's gonna be almost hitting this little tiny hump right here. So I would like to have kind of a welded in loop or hoop to clearance my drive shaft. But in the meantime, there's no reason why I can't get this cleaned up and mount our brackets for our 4-link and get our bars installed and proceed on with this project in the meantime. All right, so I started cleaning off some of this old paint and rust. You can see where I'm gonna make my welds, where my new bracket is. And when you start wire welding, you can see just how much porosity there is. These holes right here, all those rust holes. So it's definitely a good thing. I mean, the metal here is good, it's good here, and it's good on the sides. So that's exactly what we need to be able to weld this up and make it have integrity. But even, I'm gonna drill another hole right here, the second hole on the bottom, and that's going to be right where this kind of rust hole is. So that's not going to have much integrity. So welding it is totally necessary in my opinion. That also totally solidifies in my mind the need to kind of box the inside of that with another C channel and make a new cross member. All right, so I've got this pretty well cleaned up. What I'm going to do now is mount the bracket onto it with just the top 2 bolts so that I can get my position to drill out the 2 bottom holes and the center hole. Then I'm going to take it off and we're going to prep the metal. So in my opinion, this next step is probably one of the most crucial. When you put 2 pieces of metal together, all right, especially pieces that have been previously rusted and corroded and scaling and flaking apart and all that, you really want to treat this metal properly so that you don't have future rust on your new work. So 2 things have to happen. The back side of this chassis where it's all cruddy and rusty that I didn't see before with that cross member, we're going to hit that with a rust converter to stop it from rusting any further. Then on the side over here that we're putting our bracket where we just cleaned it up, if I paint that, I can't get weld on it because the weld electrode won't make contact with any type of metal. And you really want to treat that side. So I like to use this stuff. This is not the only brand, but it's a brand that I like. It's called Spray Max. It's a 1K self-etch weld-through primer. Basically, weld-through primer just means it's full of zinc so that when your electrode makes contact with it, it will light an arc and you can weld right through this onto the metal. You guys are going to want to familiarize yourself with this stuff if you do any type of body work where you're dealing with rust, you're going to be using this stuff. So good stuff. Check it out. Check. I actually forgot to open that center hole for the link arm bushing, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now and then touch it up a little paint again. All right, that hole's enlarged. It's a red color, don't mind that, it doesn't matter, we're gonna paint over it anyway. And behind it, obviously you're not gonna see anything. But before we move on, I just wanted to show you these 3 holes. They still have, full integrity on the metal, it's nice and thick. This center hole, obviously, is really thin, was not much there. But this bottom hole, I mean, just tore right open with that drill bit. There's like nothing there, it's really weak. So that's not gonna be holding much, so we're definitely gonna want to be welding that bracket on. Then I have a plan when I do the cross member that I might tie it into this bracket for additional strength. Truthfully, guys, I can complain a lot more when it comes to this stuff, but if you've been following this build, we've encountered so little rust so far with this truck. It was a Southern truck, and to encounter no rust at all is pretty much virtually impossible for a truck that's nearly 70 years old. Any vehicle that's nearly 70 years old, no matter where it's lived, unless it was completely barn kept its entire life or something. So I'm not terribly upset about this. This is just part of hot rod, and it's part of things that you're going to encounter. And working with these old cars, there's going to be rust. You can count on it. So here's a better look at the inside of the frame. You can tell just how kind of pitted and rusted that is, especially down there in that corner. So I'm going to go ahead and wire wheel that. We'll hit it with some rust converter. So the rust converter that I'm using is this Loctite. It's called Rust Neutralizer Extend or whatever. It comes in an aerosol. I don't have that here, so we're just going to brush this on. Works pretty good. It doesn't really, it says it converts rust to an oxide surface. It doesn't really convert rust through the metal, obviously. It's just what's on the surface. But that's okay. Rust, if it's deprived of oxygen and is converted to an oxide, it will not rust any further, so that's what we're looking for. So guys, this stuff goes on kind of milky, and then as it dries, it turns to like this black, hard surface. And I found with this particular brand, as opposed to others, some people gave it bad reviews because they look at it and judge it too instantly, but I found the longer you leave this on, the better it works. People will, paint it on and it's not black right away and they go leave a bad review. But what you're never reading is they'll come back the next day and it's looking a lot better. So that's been my experience with it anyway. So that side's all done. I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side while I'm sitting here between the frame rails. Now I'm gonna go ahead and spray up this side, which you can already see is darkening up pretty good. So we're gonna go ahead and hit the back side of this with a quick spray. Now this doesn't need to be weld through, honestly, back here, but This will just protect it and keep it from rusting further. So we'll go ahead and reinstall this bracket. Go ahead and repeat the same thing on the other side, and that's where I'm going to install these 2 bolts. All right, so both sides are fully installed. I'm not going to weld them yet because I want to, finish mounting and mocking everything up before I, lock everything down, just in case. I don't think I'm going to have to move these, but just in case I have to take them off for whatever reason, I'd just rather not weld them up yet. So I also want to paint the backside of that where that rust converter is and paint over those bolts and everything. But again, since I'm going to be boxing it in, I don't know exactly how I'm going to do it yet. And I have to weld. So when I weld, it's going to burn all the paint off the other side anyway. So plan is, mock everything up, get it set, then we'll go and do all the finishes and attack our cross member after the fact. Guys, so I'm getting my link bar put in here. This stuff's pretty straightforward and simple. You got your bushing here, your link bar, and then there's aluminum spacer that goes on the back side of this. Put your bolt through, nut it on the back. And that was the purpose of drilling that hole right through the frame, because that bolt goes all the way through and you catch it there on the other side. All right, so that side's completed. We're just gonna leave our link bars hanging there for the moment. We'll come over here and repeat the same procedure. That's what I consider to be pretty much the easiest part of this job, or the most straightforward. I think I'm going to change these 2 bolts out for a longer bolt. These are 4.5-inch bolts, and I'm going to put like a 5-inch bolt in there, because if you guys remember, the inside of that metal, you can see right there, it's kind of rusted out. Even though we treated it, there's still little holes on either side of that bolt right there. I think what I'm going to do is get the largest fender washer I can find and put it over there, and then scrape some metal away there and tack weld it to the frame, or just weld a solid bead around it to the frame, so I have a nice solid piece of metal for that nut to affix to, because I don't really like that. I don't trust it at all. So I know, the bracket will be welded to the frame, and I'm probably overthinking this, but I don't know. It's a link arm, and it should have a nice solid mounting surface. Or better yet, what I can do is just get a piece of flat stock, drill the 5/8 hole in it, and make my own fender washer that kind of extends up into the good metal and down to that bottom rail right here, where that's nice solid metal too, and just weld it on the bottom and weld it on the top, and then I know that sucker ain't going anywhere. All right, so if this is measured correctly, this should, there we go. So that fits right around the bolt, and then I'm going to weld it in here and weld it in there at the bottom of the frame on the corner, on both corners actually, so it's nice and stiff. And I have the hole a little bit off center, but I just want to steer clear of these washers over here. That's not going anywhere. So I did go ahead and get longer bolts. And these are 5-inch. So we'll get our bracket on here. So I'm just going to go ahead and snug these up. You don't want them crazy tight, just snug, because they do have to rotate. You don't want to crush that rubber bushing. We are all snugged up on that side. And again, guys, this is not something that's necessarily going to be essential on your build. This is just something that I had to do because, as you can see right down there, it's just really corroded up really bad. And I needed to have some reassurance that that top link bar wasn't going to pull through that really eaten up thin metal. So between welding that bracket on the bottom and the top, it'll be one with the frame, and I feel a lot better about that. What I think happened initially is that cross member where it mounts there kind of V's off at the end, and it creates a slide of sorts almost. So water would just kind of run down there and accumulate behind that little angle bracket and just, rot out that bottom channel right there. All right, so the next step is to attach our link arms here and here. Then we swing this up once our rear end is in position and tack weld it in. The problem that we have, if you remember from another video, is that this is meant for a 3-inch axle tube, and our axle tube with our Ford 8.8 is 3 1/4. So I have this line here traced out. This is where we had a section of our axle tube that I shortened. I saved it, and I just kind of traced it so it will have a perfect fit. So we got to grind this out on both sides on both pieces to be able to fit our axle. But I think that's gonna be another video, guys. I don't know about you, but maybe you're tired of watching me do this, but I'm tired of doing it for the moment. So I'm gonna go inside and get myself something to eat, and I'll catch you guys back in the next video. Please like, comment, subscribe, and thanks for watching.